Michael Jackson's history with for video games ranges from early Sonic to MMORPGs, and shows the king of pop's broad reaches in pop culture. The late artist Michael Jackson branched out into many other mediums in his career, video games were no exception. From film roles, cameos, his famous discography, it should come as no surprise that the king of pop had been present in video games going back to even its early days. MJ set and broke records, challenged racial boundaries, and revolutionized the music industry. Owing to his enormous popularity back in the early and mid-1980s, MJ also made his appearance in many video games. Here are the top 7 most popular video games that featured the king of pop. Number 7. Michael Jackson's Moonwalker. The king of pop first video game was Michael Jackson's Moonwalker. It was developed by Sega for the arcades, Genesis, and Master System in 1990. The developers followed the story around the plot of the Moonwalker movie, which starred Jackson. Players had to use Jackson's music and dance powers to save kidnapped children. Players got to control MJ in his suited smooth criminal form, zapping thugs with lightning or forcing them to spontaneously burst into impressively animated, enemy-decimating dance. On the path to foiling Pesci's diabolical Mr. Big, you had to rescue the young kids from the movie and shapeshift into a gigantic Mecha Michael. It made absolutely no sense to those who hadn't seen the movie, and little more to those that had, but that didn't make it any less fun. Number 6. Michael Jackson's Moonwalker Sega Genesis. After watching Michael Jackson's Moonwalker series' success, developers decided to work more on the title and released the Genesis and Mega Drive titles for users. With increased graphics and more challenges, several fans loved seeing their idol in action other than singing and dancing. There was also a host of secret moves that served no purpose besides making you feel awesome. Hold up on the D-pad, and MJ stands on his toes, hold down the attack button, then move, and you'll moonwalk every which way. You could even bust out full-on pelvic thrusts when low on magic. Add in hilarious earthworm gym-style emoticons between stages, and you've got the greatest Michael Jackson game ever made. Number 5. Space Channel 5 series. Apart from the Moonwalker series, Jackson had also appeared in many other video games, including the Space Channel 5 series. Interestingly, the King of Pop provided the voice of Space Michael in both Space Channel 5 and in Space Channel 5 Part 2. Chief Space Michael is a major character and the overall protagonist in the Space Channel 5 series. After Jackson passed away in 2009, Sega presumably retired the Space Michael character out of respect. Space Michael, as he was known, became the Channel 5 station chief for SC5 Part 2, complete with voice work from Jackson and a sleek chrome spacesuit. According to his in-game profile, Michael used his dance energy to save the planet from aliens 500 years prior to the Alala's Swing-In Report show. His role in Part 2 was no less glorious, with a much more prominent role and a slew of his trademark moves and routines woven into select stages. Number 4. Ready to Rumble Boxing, Round 2. Ready to Rumble Boxing, Round 2 is a boxing game for the Dreamcast, Nintendo 64, PlayStation, PlayStation 2, and Game Boy Advance. Interestingly, players could get their hands on Michael Jackson as an in-game character, and several players loved the idea of their favorite influencer in the boxing ring. With a modified military costume and a sparkly, ivory right glove, the boxing version of MJ certainly looked the part. And because her tour encouraged copious mid-match taunts in the name of Rumble meter building, Michael's moves were a boon to his boxing abilities, letting him moonwalk and heel spin his way straight to a super mode. Plus, few things in life are more intimidating than MJ calling out his rival pugilist with a triumphant. Number 3. Plants vs. Zombies. Thriller did zombies before they became such a cultural touchstone, with MJ's classic music video demonstrating that there could be a lighter side to the undead. From that moment onward, you couldn't wear a red leather jacket without someone assuming you were a Jackson superfan, a zombie, or both. Flash forward to May 2009, when PopCap Games put out its adorable tower defense/gardening game Plants vs. Zombies. With dozens of zombie variants, you knew there had to be an MJ reference in there somewhere. Sure enough, the dancing zombie moonwalked onto your lawn during the game's second chapter, wearing the iconic Thriller jacket, a white sequined glove, and Jackson's unmistakable Jerry curls. Unfortunately, the timing on this homage couldn't have been worse. Jackson died a month after PvZ was released, turning the tongue-in-cheek reference into a depressing parody. Number 2. Planet Michael. Every MMO has them, players whose only purpose seems to be dancing in public for hours on end. In fact, their /dance emotes often mimic the moves of the king of pop himself. So why not turn this peculiar virtual lifestyle into the premise for an entire game? Planet Michael materialized about a year after the pop sensation's 2009 passing, with the promise of delivering an entire virtual world for MJ fans that preferred dancing for world peace instead of traditional medieval fantasy MMOs. It was unclear if every player could embody MJ himself, a la Marvel Heroes, or if they were just passionate performers exploring the backdrops of Michael's music videos. We'll likely never know, as Planet Michael has gone dark since 2011, with nothing more to show than 3 screenshots of player-devoid ghost towns. Well, perhaps it's for the best that the only virtual Neverland is reserved for Kingdom Hearts. Number 1. Michael Jackson, The Experience. Lastly, the most popular video game that featured the King of Pop and is still remembered in fans' hearts is Michael Jackson, The Experience. It is a music video game based on Michael Jackson's songs. It was licensed by Triumph International and developed by and published by Ubisoft. Not to mention, MJ, The Experience sold over 3 million combined copies worldwide back in the day. It was not overall complicated for users to understand. In the game, up to 4 people can dance together, picking from one of 26 of Jackson's hits. Indeed, it proves its popularity and how much fans loved the idea of role-playing as Jackson in the video game. This motion-controlled rhythm game could have been the ultimate MJ tribute, teaching you how to bust out his unmistakable moves step by step. The experience came in 2 flavors. Move or Wii remotes could only track your white-gloved right hand, but gave you convincing MJ impersonators to look at, while the Kinect version could detect your full-body moves and voice, but offered little in the way of visuals or progression. Unfortunately, the end result was less than spectacular, but the game still sold like hotcakes. That's just what happens when you put the King of Pop on the cover of anything. Besides, aren't we all just living day to day in search for an excuse to imitate MJ's musical prowess? Come to think of it, you can basically play this game for free. You'll probably have just as much fun as the real deal. Did you know? Those aren't MJ's only video game homages. For instance, even though he didn't appear in the game, Jackson was slated to contribute music to Sonic the Hedgehog 3. Let me know in the comments which of these video games you liked most, or did you play these games before?